Towards improving the lives of African Americans in New Mexico, we are relaunching the Office of African American Affairs Women's Empowerment Summit. This program started in 2015 and was a special place for the New Mexico Black professional woman to gather together in a dedicated space to learn and grow with each other. The gaze is upon New Mexico Black professional women and calls for a sacred space for us and by us. So joining us in this space today, we have women who are the prime example of leaders in professional spaces. We're very excited to have you with us tonight. Our keynote speaker for tonight is a creative visionary, cultural architect, and social activist who develops award-winning campaigns and produces products that ignite conversation, introspection, and social change. We welcome Unique. Always socially conscious with a burning desire to effect change, Unique began exploring and developing ways she could marry her business acumen with her artistic passions, and the results have been tremendous. In February 2012, following the death of Trayvon Martin, Unique created her first photo awareness campaign, I Am Trayvon Martin. The campaign spread through social media and online news outlets around the world and inspired others to use their voice to highlight social injustices and the need for change. Let's welcome Unique Jones Gibson.
Anytime I get to talk about what it's like to be a Black woman, I get excited because I wouldn't want to be anything or anyone else. If you are, or if you know a Black woman, then you know that she is a majestic miracle, full of endless possibilities, potential, and power. And when she is empowered, when she is whole, when she is given the space to operate in the fullness of who she is, she inevitably raises a community determined to do the same. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me into this virtual space to share a little bit of my journey with you, in hopes that you walk away from this event more convinced than you were yesterday about everything you desire to do and or become. I love that this is the Black Thought Expo because I firmly believe that everything begins with a thought. And those thoughts come from seeds that have been planted, some intentionally and others unintentionally, some good and others not so good. It reminds me of why I began this journey that I am on today. I officially started my career in advertising almost 15 years ago after I graduated from Bowie State University, shout out to my HBCU grads, moved to New York and began working for Microsoft. But I unofficially started my career many years before that, when I started to think about what I wanted to do, when I saw folks who looked like me playing advertising executives on television and in film, like Gina and Pam and Martin and Eddie Murphy and Boomerang. Way back then, that seed was planted. And as I grew, the importance of imagery and representation and self-love continued to be reinforced in my home and in my community. And in 2013, I found myself still in corporate America, climbing the ranks, but as a mother of two Black boys. And I saw an opportunity to plant my own seeds beyond the confines of my home or anything I had seen. At the time, we were at the 1-year anniversary of Trayvon Martin's murder, and we were also celebrating the re-election of the first African-American president of the United States. And I was wrestling with thoughts of both fear and hope as I considered my own children and their future. Fear when I considered the negative narrative and subsequent treatment that so many Black boys and men have to work twice as hard to refute. And at the same time, hope when I thought about the fact that my sons were born in the same year as the election and re-election of President Barack Obama. I like to call them my Obama babies. I can still remember very vividly sitting at my kitchen table processing these emotions and being distracted by my oldest son, who was 4 at the time. Like most 4-year-olds, he was shadow boxing, fiercely fighting the air. But the more I watched him, the less he looked like my son, Chase Gibson, and the more he reminded me of a little Muhammad Ali. As I watched him move and glide across the floor, I thought about how Chase, at 4, had enough confidence to fill every Zoom room represented, just like Muhammad Ali. And yet he didn't have a clue who Muhammad Ali was or the reason why he chose to affirm himself so boldly and tell everyone that not only was he pretty, but that he was also the greatest, because he knew that if he did it, the world would try to make him live up to a standard that was beneath his own. Reimagining Chase as Muhammad Ali helped me to reimagine other children I knew as historical trailblazers, like Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, Mae Jemison, Maya Angelou, and so many others. So I called up my friends and I put out a casting call and I photographed these babies. And it was clear that I was on to something, even though I only intended to do it for 28 days. Each day, I released a new photo of a new child channeling a trailblazer with a quote. And as the month went on, more people engaged and noticed. If you haven't seen the campaign, when you get a moment, Google it. Google Because of Them We Can Black History Campaign. I intentionally did not do a slideshow because I want you to hear me. And those cute pictures are a distraction. The more I posted images on social media, the more people started to request things like products, which I had never considered. They write on my fan page and say things like, "These images are great. Where can I get a poster?" And I'd respond and say, "You can get a poster today for $19.99." Before I even knew where I would print them or how I would package them. Then they started to ask for a calendar. Can we get a calendar? Why, yes, you can get a calendar for $15.99 with free shipping, because I am a Black woman, a majestic miracle full of endless possibilities, potential, and power. I was figuring it out as I went along because that is what we do. By the end of the month, I was on the phone doing an interview on nationally syndicated radio with Tom Joyner, and I can still remember his voice when he said to me, "You have to keep this going." To which I immediately, without second thought, said, "Of course." And then I proceeded to tell my husband later that evening that I told the world that I would continue the campaign, which meant that I would have to leave my job to give it the attention it needed. And because he is amazing, he said that it was riskier not to take the risk. Processing the fear that I felt at that table, processing those thoughts led me to a solution to promote Black excellence, conversation, and an appreciation for the culture through the creation of the Because of Them We Can campaign, which has evolved into a media platform that garners over 40 million impressions per month, amplifying, sharing, and creating positive Black news on a daily basis. But a lot has changed since launching that endeavor 8 years ago, and decided to risk it all in order to continue down this path. Since then, I've continued to create and build simply by exploring the infinite possibilities that exist when we say yes to ourselves. Because no matter how many people tell you no, you can give yourself your yes. So since then, I've created another mini. When I started off back then, I had two sons. I have a daughter now. Her name is Sage. She'll be at this conference maybe in 15 years. I created a hit party game, or a viral game. You might have played it. It's called Culture Tags. And I created my very own advertising agency. And we were recently named the first African American advertising agency of record for Hyundai. Now, this has led others, including myself, to ask the question, how do you do all of this and still manage to take care of that, whatever that may be? So I hope you're saying this with me. I am a Black woman, a majestic miracle, full of endless possibilities, potential, and power. I'm gonna say it again so you can write it down. You ready? I am a Black woman, a majestic miracle, full of endless possibilities, potential, and power. But can I be real for a moment? I believe that as Black women, whether you have a spouse or a partner, whether you have children or are an auntie or a godparent or a friend or a daughter, the truth is the question, how do you do it, is one that we're all asked or ask ourselves at some point, because so many people depend on us for direction, for answers, for encouragement, for life. But these hats that we find ourselves wearing, or these added roles and responsibilities that we have managed to amass over the years, do not replace or erase our dreams. If anything, they intensify our desire to realize them. As Black women, one of our natural powers is our ability to see potential in others, but it's a catch 22 because not only do we see it many times, oftentimes, you can type in the chat, this is you. We work sometimes to our detriment to try to extract that potential out of others. We have all been there, whether you've seen it in a coworker, a mentee, a friend, or perhaps an ex. But have you ever noticed that when it comes to our own potential, our own desires, we tend to wrestle longer than we should with questions that make us contemplate pushing them to the back burner just a little while longer? No matter where you are in your career or on your journey, I want to share a couple of quick things that I believe are important for us to do, regardless of whether your goal is to pursue a new project, lead a department, get the corner office, or simply attend all the bottomless mimosa brunches you can find. Okay? This is my formula that I want to share with you. Are you ready? I need to see some chats saying I'm ready in the chat box. Are you ready? All right. As Black women, I know this first one can be difficult, but I want you to choose you first. Choose you first. Not second, not third, not after anyone or anything else. Make what matters to you and what moves you a priority first. Because if you don't, who will? Nowhere in the book of How to Be an Amazing Black Woman does it state that you have to put other people's desires and needs before your own. Number two, process the fear. Like, actually face it and sit with what scares you. Because if you don't confront it, you'll never reach the idea or the solution to overcome it. And if you need a little help during your own personal exercise or exploration, remember what I learned way back when in Sunday school. It was that fear is simply false evidence appearing to be real. Number three, embrace the risk. Oftentimes when we hear people say that's risky or you'd be taking a risk, we assign a negative connotation to it. But I believe there are random risks and then there are smart, calculated, and strategic risks. Seek those out and embrace them. And not because the reward is potentially greater than the risk, because that won't always be the case, but embrace them because they'll cause you to stretch and grow. They'll expose strengths you were previously unaware of, and it will give you the experience you need to make better decisions in the future. Hope y'all writing this down. Number four, this is my favorite one. Replace the list of things you want to accomplish with a list of things you want to learn. Replace the list of things you want to accomplish with a list of things you want to learn. Accomplishing goals is great, but if we focus on checking boxes on our great list of 33 things I want to accomplish before I die, then we can overlook the experiences and moments throughout the process that can help evolve and grow us into the people we were created to be. And last but not least, give yourself permission to do it. Give yourself permission to do it. Whatever your it may be. Rid yourself of the guilt. This is a big one. The guilt that tries to creep in when you make the decision to choose you. And when you finally do, resist the temptation to shrink. Maya Angelou said that women are phenomenal. I'm pretty sure she meant Black women. We're all phenomenal, but an extra emphasis on Black women. Beyonce said that women run the world. And Michelle Obama said that there is no limit to what we can accomplish as women, which reminds me of my final point. Support one another. I am here to support you, not to compete with you. Affirm one another. I am here to affirm you, not to tear you down. See one another. I am here to recognize you, not to pretend as if you don't exist. Because iron sharpens iron, and when one of us wins, all of us win, especially our community. Because you, my friend, are a majestic miracle full of endless possibilities, potential, and power. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. We are sitting in here just feeling so empowered by your words and feeling very much like, you know, as much as we have tackled the fear ourselves in our own professional careers, that list has given me just so much permission to really process that fear in a different way and to be able to move forward in much of what we do. Right. And so we really appreciate all of those words that you have. I think one of the things that I am just looking at right here is the giving yourself the yes, right? Is that so often we are told no because we don't look the part. And what a great gift that for us to be able to be that representation for other people in our leadership roles. And thinking about the things that you said of how seeing that, even if it was Eddie Murphy on Boomerang, right, who was also one of my favorites of how I was going to be an executive one day, that all of that really matters. And so we thank you so much for those words. And so if we could ask you just, you know, how are you processing that fear? How is that? I mean, it sounds, you know, you've done all of these amazing things. It sounds like you must have not had any fear to ever begin with to be able to just jump in and take those risks. But how do you process that fear? What is, other than these 6 steps that you've given us that are wonderful, what's your process?
Yes, so thank you for those remarks, and thank you just for the opportunity to share. I process fear on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, right? Minute by minute sometimes. It depends on what I am preparing to confront or do. And I think it's something that we have to normalize as something we will consistently do. I think when we psych ourselves into believing that once you reach a certain level or once you get to a certain place, that fear is a non-factor. Well, that's not real. Fear is consistently trying to creep its way back. And so you have to consistently confront it. And when you normalize the idea that it is something that you will consistently have to do, then it becomes easier to see it for what it is, right? And to see what's beyond it. And so I try to look beyond fear. If I have something that's coming up or if I have something that is scaring me, I try to see what's on the other side of it. Well, what if I go beyond what I'm scared to run past, right? That's how I, on a daily basis, try to process it. What's on the other side of it? And just knowing that it is normal to feel that. There's nothing wrong with it.
Thank you. That's really wonderful advice. If anyone has questions, please jump in. I don't want to take up all the space today for sure, right?
No,
you know, something else, the I am a Black woman, a majestic miracle. Tell me about that. Tell me how you have come to these words of wisdom and been able to give them to us today.
I feel like that. I mean, I spend a lot of time. I'm in a sorority. I have a lot of Black women as friends. I'm friends with a lot of people, but it's just from observing, right? You know, I was raised by a Black woman. My grandmothers were very influential in my life. One of my grandmothers was a preacher. My other grandmother owned a bar, right? They were very different, but they were both majestic miracles. And when I think about Black women, I think about Black people in general, how before we were even born, we almost didn't even exist in the way that we do, right? I think about how anyone who exists, who is African-American, I think about what that means. Every Black person is a miracle. But when I think about how women just give birth to communities, give birth to dreams, allow and make room for other individuals. The more I processed that, the more I thought about the individuals in my own life who have been influential, it just came to me, right? That's who we are. And when we walk in the fullness of who we are, we give permission or we encourage and inspire others to do the same, not just little pockets of people, but communities. So it just came from my own observations, just thinking about my mama, Big Mama, my grandma Bernetta and them, and my sorors. So it's just a real observation.
Great observation, right? And we are so with you in seeing all of that majestic Black women here in the room. And so one of our panelists would love to ask a question as well.
Sure.
Good evening, my sister. You did that. I truly enjoyed every word, but something that really resonated with me was that number 6 statement where you talked about support one another, affirm one another, not I'm here to encourage and not compete. And when I heard it, it made my heart smile. But then when I really thought about it in just one moment to realize that's not always what we see. So often we see the exact opposite. We feel the exact opposite. So what's been your real experience? Because you wouldn't plant the seed if the seed did not need to grow. So could you share just a little bit about your experiences with that and why you feel it is so important that we stop being those crabs in a barrel, especially as Black women?
Listen, I love it. I love it. Yeah, listen, I believe that you have to lead by example. And very early on, when your name is unique, you understand that you just can't go the route of everyone else. You can't be like everyone else. You can't act like everyone else. You can't stoop. You can't act. You just got to be you. And so for me, I have had experiences in the workplace. I have had experiences in this industry that I am in, which is, I don't even know how you want to call it, but you got, we like to talk about blue check Twitter, right? Or the verified folks, or, it's just this real cliquish once you get in these circles. And I have experienced moments where I can tell, whether by what's said or what's done, that another Black woman sees me as a threat and doesn't see me as her sister, right? Doesn't see me as her support system. And for me, I feel compelled to show another way, to show that, I tweet out very often that you can be successful and kind at the same time. You don't have to pick one. You can be both of those things. And it's important to me to really refute it isn't even a stereotype, because it's a reality, but it's up to me. I feel responsible to show that you don't have to act that way. I feel responsible when people Black women slide in my DMs all day. I don't know them. I don't know their names. I don't know where they live. I don't know what their mamas do, right? We always wonder, what your parents do? I don't know any of those questions or answers. But because that is my sister, I feel compelled to acknowledge. I feel compelled to respond. When I go out and I see a Black woman, for me, it is a challenge that I welcome to affirm, right? To just move beyond the comfort of just like going about my business, especially now that we're in these, these interesting times. That's all I'll say. But I will, okay, hair. Okay. Dress, I like it. Okay, hair. I will do that because, again, we have to show people that it's possible. And oftentimes people reflect what they've seen. And people sometimes reflect and act in the same way that they have been treated. And I think that it's important to not do that. So yes, crabs in the barrel do exist. It's tough, but I don't play in the barrel. So, I keep it moving. And I'm also very serious about energy. And so I feel like if you're in a space where you encounter some people or some Black women or folks in general like that, you can only subject yourself to those type of environments for so long. And then there's just, I always say, don't entertain the type of energy you have no interest in admitting. Don't entertain the type of energy that you have no interest in emitting. If you don't want to put that energy out in the world, do not entertain it. And so there are certain people that you just shouldn't even entertain if they have subscribed to a crabs in a barrel type of mentality. Then that's you. Y'all can have fun over there. I'm gonna stick over here on this side of the street with people who believe in collective economics and empowerment. I'm gonna stay with these folks. Y'all can stay over there. And that's just how you have to move. But it's real, but I believe in showing that you can be successful and kind at the same time.
So it sounds like you have just answered one of our audience members' questions, but I'm going to ask it again and see if you'd like to add to it. The question is, how do we uplift others when some sisters may be moving woundedly or harmful?
Listen, I just talked about how, a lot of times we see people with potential, right? She got the potential to be good. She got the potential to love. She got the potential to heal. You know what? She don't really mean what she has potential. And that's nice, but it ain't always your job to extract the potential out of that person, especially not to your detriment. And so that's just real. I think that you can love people from afar. You can wish them well from afar. You can pray for them from afar. You can do all those things, again, without entertaining that energy. Energy is transferable, right? Y'all see me up here smiling. I went to the dentist this morning. Y'all probably like, y'all just feel good, right? But so you feel that. Y'all are in New Mexico, but you feel that. Now, if I got up here like, hey, what's up? Listen, mouth is hurting. Y'all would start feeling heavy, right? You would feel it. Energy is transferable. So if you see somebody, if you don't want that type of energy, you got to leave certain things like that to professionals. And that might be a therapist, right? But are you a therapist? Okay, if not, then that's not your job. And so I think we have to divorce ourselves from the idea that we have to save people. I think we save people by providing the example of what is possible. And that is by doubling down on, again, who you are and what you desire to do, or whoever it is you desire to become. Provide that example that when they are ready to pay attention, they can tap into. But it's not your job to tap on them and, that's not my gift. Now, if that's what you want your gift to be, then more power to you. But for me, it's not my gift. And so I feel like I go by the lead by example model. And I try to, again, show what's possible and show people that, you can heal. But that requires work. And that work requires your commitment, not mine, right?
Hi, Unique. I'm Nisi. It's so good to see you. I've been following you on social media for many years. And so the way the screen is set up, you are completing our sister circle. The energy is flowing. I'm so glad to see you. I wanted to go back to your first point about choosing us first, right? I'm a mother. As a director of a nonprofit, there's often so many demands on our time. And I see you the moment you paused in your driveway with your do not disturb on. And I think sometimes it gets lost, like, what does choosing ourselves first actually look like? What does that mean? And so I'm wondering if you can share with us some very practical ways that you choose you first, being that you are blue check verified and you are booked and busy. Like, how do you actually put you first?
It's a struggle. I'm just going to, first of all, DM me so I can follow you back. Appreciate the support over the years. But it is a struggle. It is like the fear approach. It requires a daily practice. Think about this. What if you just brushed your teeth on Monday and then decided you weren't going to brush your teeth again until next Monday? How would your teeth, how would your breath, right? You have to do it multiple times a day, right? Right? It's the same thing. Like it is a daily habit. It's a practice that you have to consistently do. And so for me, it is like what you saw on Instagram, where I pull up to my home and I know my kids are doing their thing because I got 3 and they're 4, 8, and 12. And I know they wild. And before I walk in the house, I just take a moment. I don't hit the button because I don't open the garage because I don't want them to know I'm in the driveway, right? So I just sit there. I don't have no food. I don't have anything. But if I have food, I definitely stay in the car and eat it first. But I sit there and I just pause. I just take a break. Now, this particular day that you're talking about, where our garage is also our master bathroom and bedroom. And my husband said he just so happened to peek out the window and saw I was sitting in the driveway. So he texted me. If y'all didn't see it, he sent me a text and said, "You better come in here and help me raise these kids." And it was funny. And I had on my do not disturb, but obviously I wasn't driving. I was in the driveway. So I think do not disturbs are good. I think locking doors is important. I know for my children, they will bust in. I think also being very real, right? I'm married, have a husband, been married 13 years. You know, I'm just very straight up. I'm tired. I need a moment. You know, I need a nap. Before this engagement, he saw me upstairs and I went like this. That's what I do. When I need a moment, he was like, I'm gonna take the kids. Oh, you gonna take the kids? Well, thank you. Y'all gonna go for a quick run? Amazing. So I think it's speaking up, being very clear about what your needs are. And if you cannot articulate them all the time, being very clear what your actions are. So if my kids know if you got to disperse because I'm getting ready to say something, or just locking your doors, taking the extra time in the driveway, and then finding things that interest you. During the pandemic, I found this room. So I was like, you know what? I need a hobby. I need something that is not tied to making money. Because a lot of times we get these hobbies and then we be like, ooh, girl, that was a nice cake you baked. I know, girl, wasn't it good? You can sell these. Really? You think so? Yeah, you can sell these. Make you a nice little penny. Then it's a hustle all of a sudden. Lord, the hobby done turned into a hustle. So I needed something that I was not going to monetize. I'm not selling no plants, right? So for me, I bought like 20 plants, y'all. Now, it's about 13 of them left, okay? 13. Now, 7 of them are gone in the backyard somewhere. But just the idea of having something that couldn't ask me for nothing now. If I see them drooping, I name them all Shirley or Mother. That's their names. I give them water, but it helps me to decompress. Another thing that I'm recently signed up for was golf lessons. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna stick to it, but again, I'm trying to find things that interest me that have nothing to do with taking care of somebody that can complain. Okay, the plants can't complain. They just, I look at them, I say, all right. Or, things that can help me to decompress. So I chose golf because I don't want to run, I don't want to do that. I don't want to play tennis. I don't want to get winded. I want to walk. I want to take my time. So I chose golf. So those are just a couple of things that I've done, but I would just recommend being real with yourself and being real with the demands. For me, I have multiple roles. And so certain things just aren't realistic. Got a $2,000 bike sitting in the garage that I rode 10 times maybe. If you follow me, you probably saw it in my Insta stories like, oh, she went and got her. It was cold one day last year. I rode it. I froze for about 2 hours and I never rode it again. Just ordered a Peloton. It's supposed to get here on the 17th. I think that's Thursday. Check in with me in 6 months. Ask me if I'm still riding it. But just be real with yourself and keep looking for things until you find what works for you. So far, for me, it's the plants and the driveway.
Unique, I want to echo the sentiments that have gone forth already. Thank you so much for taking this time to be with us. And I think that you have another gift that you probably haven't tapped into, and that's a comedian. You are absolutely hilarious. But I wanted to say, Nisi kind of hit on the point that I wanted to talk about, which is that choose me first. And I think that you already talked about what I wanted to ask. And that is exactly how do you do that? Because I think that there is a tendency for us as women to feel guilty about putting ourselves first. And we have been given that message both overtly and subliminally about, especially if women have kids, about, you're supposed to put your family first and all of those kinds of things. And before I go, I just wanted to say, if you need a place to donate that bike, it doesn't snow in New Mexico, so I'll take it.
I don't know. I might need an Airbnb so I can come ride it. But thank you. Yeah, I mean, guilt is real. I think what happens, y'all, is we really psych ourselves out to think that we aren't supposed to feel certain emotions. Like, guilt is real. We feel guilty for feeling guilty. Like, it's a real thing. I think when we normalize those things, then it's easier for us to name it and to move on. To name it, why do I feel this way? Is it real? Is it valid? Those are my questions. Why do I feel this way? Is it real? Is it valid? Is it something I can change? Is it something I should change? Right? But yeah, I mean, just normalize it. Guilt is real. I could feel guilty for locking this door with my daughter 10 minutes ago. Y'all didn't even see her. She was laying on the floor peeking through because she want to come in here. Am I gonna feel guilty that I'm not letting her in my summer? No, because then she gonna come and she gonna disrupt everything. So is it real? Is it valid? Is it something I can change? Should I change it? Should I unlock that door? No. Do I feel guilty? Absolutely not. Are her little feelings hurt? Maybe. Will she get over it? Yes. It's a simple questions.
Thank you. And so we have time for this one last question that comes from our audience. And this person asks, how do you face choosing to invest in your business to make money, pay the bills, or roll the dice?
Oh, as in we got to pick one, like rob Peter, pay Paul? Like, I don't know, there are phases. I'll put it like that. Okay. So give me that one more time so I can give you a very real answer.
So the question is, how do you face choosing to invest in your business to make money, pay the bills, or roll the dice?
Man, listen, there were stages in my business where where I might have just, when I decided to quit my job, that was a dice roll because I didn't have any real money in savings. Had a mortgage, had 2 kids, but I'm a Black woman, right? Like, I doubled down on the fact that our potential, our power, and our possibilities are limitless because of who powers us. And that goes for anyone, Black or not. Like, we are all limitless if we tap into that belief. And so there were moments where I was definitely just rolling the dice. I think I have always, since I have been an entrepreneur, I have always made the decision to invest in my business. There isn't a time where I have made a decision not to invest in my business. I still, to this day, if I go into Target, we've been in Target for a year, and then next month we'll be in pretty much every major retailer. If I go in the store and I see culture tags on the shelf, guess what I do? I buy it. My husband is like, what are you doing? I'm like, excuse me. I am supporting me. When we went to Kohl's.com and we ended up being online and I went on Kohl's website, guess what I did? I ordered a game. My husband's like, Unique, what are you doing? Every now and then on my website, I will order a game on my own website, knowing that my husband and our workers are running the warehouse. They are like, why are we packaging this up for your house? Because I support me, okay? If I don't support me, who will? I got to lead by example, right? And so I just say there's never a point where I have not invested in my business. And there are times where I have made sacrifices to invest in my business. Sacrifices like, there might have been there were situations a couple years ago where I might have said, man, I got this money, I got this debt, but man, I know if I give this my all and I double down on it, I'll know in a few years, I won't be in a position where I have to decide or choose anymore, right? So that's what I did. And a lot of people would probably say, like, that's crazy, that's wild. But I don't know an entrepreneur, Y'all, I'm in the sunroom. Can y'all tell? Lord. I don't know an entrepreneur that hasn't maxed out credit cards, whose credit hasn't taken a hit at some point, because they're trying to figure it out. And I think that's what you do in business. You're trying to figure it out. Now, will my kids ever go without food or shelter or clothing? Absolutely not. That's not even a question. But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I look at 4 years ago, when I was in a space where, to the person who asked the question, I was debating between, do I roll the dice? Do I pay my bills? Do I go 15 days late on this one, and then 28 days late on this one, but never 30 days late? We never go 30 days late. Like, I mean, these are, I'm gonna be real with y'all. Like, y'all want me to speak up? That's what I'm figuring. Okay, this one due on the 5th. Okay, pay that one by the 4th of next month. Okay, this one due. Okay, call and ask to change the payment date. Like, I had all sorts of hustles figured out, but guess what? I'm on auto pay now, right? Like, there's growth, but those are humble beginnings. And I think that a lot of times those are the tests that put us in a space where we're wondering, like, should I be doing this? I also think having a great accountant. Now, I was doing some of that stuff without my A team. I ain't have an accountant, an attorney, or an assistant. Now, that's a mistake, okay? So maybe I wouldn't have had to say, okay, just doing the 5th. Okay, I'm gonna pay it on the 4th, because an accountant might have said, well, Unique, you can do it this way, right? So I think that that's important too. My girl Lovey says, have your A team, your assistant, your accountant, and your attorney whenever you are thinking about starting your own business, or whenever you're bringing in money on the side. And also, I don't want to, I don't have the paper in front of me, but I also don't want to preach entrepreneurship 100% either, because that's not for everyone, right? Everybody doesn't want to be an entrepreneur, or some people don't always want to be an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurship is great. I don't think it's for everybody, right? I think it's something that folks should, it's like living in New York. I know y'all in New Mexico and the weather's beautiful, but I think everybody should live in New York, at least for 2 weeks. I mean, if nothing else, because if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere, right? But yeah, so I'm sorry, I'll ramble, but appreciate the question.
Thank you so much. It has been such a joy to have you a part of our Women's Empowerment Summit. We just thank you for being here. We thank you for the words that you've given us. And I'm just so excited to go, have some email signature or poster on my wall or something that really talks about, I am a Black woman, a majestic miracle full of endless possibilities and power. So thank you so much for giving us that gift tonight. And we just really appreciate you being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. You all have an amazing conference.
So tonight, now we want to move to our local, inspiring, amazing women that I have here at the table with me. Off to my far right is Alexandria Taylor. I want to introduce you all to her, but many of you probably already know her. She is the Deputy Director of the New Mexico Coalition of Sexual Assault Programs, Vice Chair of the Board of Directors for the ACLU New Mexico, the Chair, which is, I get to work with you very closely on this, of the Governor's Advisory Council on Racial Justice, and the founder and steward of the Healing for Black Women Fund, which pays for healing services for community members, and and also she is an initiator of the New Mexico Black Central Organizing Committee with other amazing Black women and youth leaders in New Mexico. Born and raised here in New Mexico, a major portion of Alexandria's existence is spent living out radically mothering with her son. Thank you so much for being here. To my immediate right is Kim York. She has over 25 years of nonprofit leadership experience, a recognized guru in nonprofit management, consulting, training, facilitation, program development, strategic planning, strategic alliance. Oh girl, this is too much. Research, self-care, youth development, and mentoring. Y'all don't even know who's all at this table today. It's amazing. Kim is the founder of So Who, standing for Serving Others While Helping Others. That's amazing. Nonprofit organization whose mission is to strengthen the lives of youth and young adults and those who serve, support them through resiliency-based character education, leadership, mentoring, professional development, and support services. She holds a bachelor's of social work, earned a dual master's of social administration and master's of nonprofit organizations with nonprofit management certification. And she is a current doctoral student, right? She serves as a member of the Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's Council for Racial Justice, and she is a former New Mexico Office of African American Affairs Executive Advisor Committee. She's also a member of the Representative Cheryl Stapleton's Black Education Act and Crown Act. So thank you so much for being here. Absolutely. And to my left is Judge Shamara Henderson. So excited to have you here. She was appointed to the Court of Appeals in February of 2020 by our Governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, and then won her election in November of 2020, becoming the first Black appellate judge and Black woman to hold statewide office in New Mexico. She received a bachelor's degree from American University in Washington, D.C., where she received a full ride with the highly competitive Frederick Douglass Scholarship. Judge Henderson started her career as a litigator with the Second Judicial District Attorney's Office. She's very active in her community as a University of New Mexico Alumni Association board member. She is an Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority member and New Mexico Sentencing Commission. And those are just a few of the things that she does. She enjoys spending her time with friends, family, traveling, bar. Oh, girl. That's hard stuff. Bar and yoga, hiking, and community service. So thank you so much for being here. Man, that stuff is really hard. And then we have Pastor Gian Jones Ralph. Thank you so much for being here. She epitomizes the idea of a balanced excellence in life, maintaining pleasurable duties as a mother, wife, and grandmother. She finds time to serve her community in a variety of ways. As a single parent for 10 years, Pastor Gian worked multiple jobs, increasing her knowledge and proving herself an invaluable asset. She now serves as founder and pastor of Healing Waters Ministry and founder and leader of Surge Ministries, both which are located here in Albuquerque. She also serves as a board member on the City of Albuquerque Police Oversight Agency. Thanks so much for joining us. And our last and certainly not least panelist is Dr. Vicki Bannerman. She is the Deputy Secretary of the Public Education Department's Identity, Equity, and Transformation. In this role, Dr. Bannerman is informing policy, initiatives, and programs agency-wide in the areas regarding diversity, equity, inclusion, and transformational change for our young children in school. Before moving to the Public Education Department, she was the principal at Volcano Vista High School and Wilson Middle School. She has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English Literature, a Bachelor of Arts degree in African and African American Studies, and holds a Master's degree in Educational Leadership and Administration, and a Doctor of Education with a concentration in Educational Administration. Dr. Bannerman has a loving husband with whom she shares 2 beautiful children, a home filled with love and laughter, and we're super excited to have some of that love and laughter tonight. Faith that endures all things and an unwavering spirit for service that is deeply rooted in cultural richness and global works. And so we are so excited to have these ladies here with us tonight. We want to have an amazing conversation talking about leadership, our roles in leadership, how we got here, what we do and all of those things. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight to be a part of this. And so as we begin tonight's discussion, we really want to look at leadership, mentoring, and shifting in the workplace. We will take a pause and then come back and talk about representation, success, and microaggressions. Y'all have felt those, right? And so ladies, let's go ahead and get this conversation started. First, we really want to talk about, we have seen so much progress in our nation, right? We have seen women rising to all new levels. Recently, the Forbes 500 list came out, and for the first time in history, there are 2 Black women CEOs on the list, right? Kamala Harris is vice president. We're seeing high-profile examples of Black women rising far above the glass ceiling, far above whatever anyone ever thought possible. And yet, we still know that the statistics for Black women in leadership are low. The Black women who are promoted, who have the opportunity to be in leadership is very, very low when you're talking about our statistics and the everyday experiences of women. And so can you all just share with me a little bit, what are the ways that you've been able to rise up to the leadership levels that you're at? What are the stories of that, what got you here?
Okay. So I'll go. So if I'm being very honest, and this, this will touch on a few things that we will talk about later, I'm sure. Being a Black woman in this nation, you are either going to be someone who people like. They like you, they feel like you're approachable and that they can talk to you, or you're just going to be this angry Black woman who just, I hate to see her coming, and oh my gosh, she never agrees with anything. And so in order to climb in the skin that we are in the nation in which we live, we have to find that balance. That balance where we can be true to exactly who we are and what we believe and stand firm in our truths while presenting a message in a way that can be heard and received and not misunderstood. Now, when I tell you that is a magic trick, and while we are so majestic and powerful and beyond potential, it's because we do it every day, because we have to just about ask for permission to be accepted and ask for permission to be heard. And just because we get the seat at the table does not mean we're going to get to keep it. So we have to work triple time in honoring ourselves and standing in our truths without scaring the people away. And you know what I mean by the people.
Briefly add to that, I think one of the things that is always so important is to believe in yourself, right? No matter what comes your way, you know that if you set your mind to it and you put in the work and you take the time for yourself for peace and rest and prayer and energy work, whatever it is that you need to do, right, to continue to make sure that your cup is overflowing. If you do that, you can accomplish whatever you want, right? The thing that I always laugh about my intros is everyone always focuses on the fact that I was a state prosecutor. And I think that's because a lot of people know what that is, right? And when I was in law school, I was not of the demographic of somebody who would be a clerk at a Supreme Court. And in fact, when I went to go clerk at the New Mexico Supreme Court, they thought I was the first Black clerk. Turns out I wasn't. It was another gentleman who'd been there like over a decade before me, but I was the first Black woman to clerk at the New Mexico Supreme Court, right? Which is a prestigious position in the legal world. I became an assistant United States attorney at a very young age. And that was also one of those positions that you don't normally see faces like ours. And when that was no longer the right fit for me for multiple reasons, I took that leap of faith, right? And went to the entrepreneurial role and started my own law firm and switched from federal prosecution to federal, state, national criminal defense and civil rights work, right? But that every single one of those steps that has led me to now becoming a judge has been me consistently believing in myself, no matter what someone told me to my face, what someone didn't tell me that they were telling other people that they could do, right? Or other people just trying to hold you down or trying to take that seat away from you at the table. I always believed in myself. And if you stick to that, you can accomplish amazing things.
Well, that was amazing. And I want to show the other side of that. And I was the person that received every word that was thrown at me, and I took it to heart. And so I lived a life of rejection and offense because of my skin tone, because of my weight, whatever it was, I lived in rejection. And so that when you read that little part of my life and you talked about the 10 years of being a single parent was a very dark time in my life. And I saw other women like you all, you know, the educated, beautiful. I just looked at you and I just wanted, but I always felt that the words that were said to me, that I had to live up to those words. And so I stayed in that rejection until one day I realized that that wasn't God's plan for me. That was what man had planned. And when I began to receive the healing of God and understanding that rejection was just something that was around to help build my character, and that there was a plan and there was a purpose for me, then I no longer received those words, but I came out of those words. And what came out of it was a spirit of transparency, where I began to talk to other women and tell them what I was going through. And I'm thankful for the strong women that were not, that didn't reject me because I wasn't maybe what they felt, you know, on their level, but those that would talk to me and help me get to where I am. And so that's part of why Healing Waters is here today, because I want to show women that you can heal from all of that hurt and what you can accomplish while you're being healed. Because when you're not healed and you're holding on to pain and you're not being forgiving others, and you're just, you know, just full of just down, that you are keeping yourself from the purpose and the plan. And there is a great purpose in us. So I'm thankful that I'm here today, because, you know, just to be with you when Unique said number 6, to support one another and to affirm. And I'm thankful that I have in my heart, I can tell a woman about her outfit. Girl, you got it going on. And I can tell her about her hair and those things. And I'm not intimidated by any woman, because after you get through what I've gone through and get to the healing side, you know, you begin to, you know, kind of feel yourself a little bit, you know, and, you know, and you know, I'm the one, you know, it's me for me, you know, that kind of thing. And so I'm just thankful that I'm here to sit with you guys. I was so intimidated. I told my husband, I said, you see who they have on? Chancellor didn't tell me who was on this round table. And when I said, do you see who it is? And then when you have a husband and a team that says, you know what, you may not have what you thought you had, but we see you as that same person.
Yes.
Thank you.
Amen, Pastor G.
Amen.
I'm so glad to be here with you. You know, when you asked that question, Amy, the first thing I thought is Black women have always led. Whether we're leading in our homes, Pastor Dion, you were leading during your single motherhood,
Yes.
Whether it's us leading in our homes, in our community, in our churches, in our jobs, whatever role we're in, we have always been leaders. We just have never been awarded the title, right?
Yes.
This country, many of our communities, so much of what we have is because of Black women's leadership and our ability to serve without the title. And so now that women are rising, Black women are rising up and getting the title, it's what's always been in us, right? I enter every room knowing that I am the daughter of Deborah, the granddaughter of Carnell and Margaret, and that I carry with them the wisdom and the leadership and all of the skills and tools that they modeled for me while I was growing up. And so I think that we can get caught up in like, Black women are just making the Fortune 500s list. And this is the first time a Black woman has been a vice president. It's because this is the first time this country has started to open that glass ceiling and allow for our leadership, allow for us to take the place we've always been in, right? And so I just want to acknowledge that, like, this title of leadership doesn't mean that you have to have the formal title. We are leading every single day that we wake up, really, and show up and live our lives fully as Black women. And that healing is a part of it. It's absolutely, you know, it's absolutely essential to our leadership, is that healing.
That's very good.
So I want to add to what Pastor G said about, you know, not feeling like you measured up and all of those kinds of things. And Amy, when you were reading my bio, I was just like, wow, like, you know, a lot of people don't know this, you know, that you hear all those wonderful things, but I had to go to night school to graduate from high school, right? So I've not always been the person that people see. And I like to share that because so many of us do. We see all the people that had their whole lives planned out for them, had a vision of who they were. I struggled. I didn't go to college right out of high school. I didn't have a traditional path. But the one thing that I did have and always will be is a servant. And so I have always been one that has served other people, sometimes to my own detriment, if you will. And so I have risen in leadership because of that, because people see me, in the community, and they know that my first and foremost is to invest. I didn't know a single soul when I moved to New Mexico in 2015. And so to think that I'm sitting here with you ladies is just because I made an intentional effort to do and be who I am. And that is a servant, being in my community, serving people.
That's so wonderful, right? And so what I'm hearing from, what each of you is saying is how we've been able to do it. We've been able to take what we have, historically been doing, change it into a title. We've been able to say yes to ourselves. We've been able to say no to people's words. We've been able to make it happen in multiple different paths, right? And that, very often when we're talking about Black women, it's about getting it done on your own. It's about you moving forward, finding the way that you can, get through those barriers that other people have put in your way, or get through those barriers that life has put in your way. But that when we go to leadership trainings or when we read books on how to succeed, what we always hear is find a mentor, right? But that just isn't this world experience for many Black women, right? For many Black women, they don't see someone in leadership that looks like them. Or, when they see someone in leadership that looks like them, that person says, well, we can't be together because, if three of us in a room together, they'll think there's a riot.
There's a gang.
Or those kinds of things are really barriers for us, right? And so I want to ask you all, what has mentorship meant to you? Has it been there for you? Has it built up your career? Has it not? What does that word mean for you?
So I love that. I heard mentorship. I work also in IT in a professional position, which I climbed up only by God's grace. I sit in a position where I should have a master's degree, but I don't. And I sit there I wanted a mentor. But again, like you said, when I went to other women of color, there was always a competition or feeling that maybe I wanted your position, or again, we can't hang together. You're not with me. And I would see others that were mentored, and I was like, wow, they have a mentor. And even today, that is really the culture in corporate America, is to have that mentor, to find that person. And what I had to do was I had to look inside myself. And again, that word potential that she talked about, I had to see that potential in myself. When I didn't have a mentor, I had to dig inside mama, grandma, all of those things and pull that up. And that gave me, when you get healed, you get some knowledge that comes from, just within, around, and that was what helped me. So unfortunately, I never found the mentor that I needed, but I found more inside myself.
And Pastor G, it's amazing you say that, because also I've never had a mentor. And Amy, you and I had that exact conversation when we were just in girlfriend mode, just talking it up. And I thought, gosh, never. I've always wanted mentorship, always wanted it, and given it freely to anyone who just needed some support, encouragement. But I have never truly had anyone in my life who I could call a mentor. So similarly to what you described, I just started taking pieces from my village, just pieces that either I saw it, I respected it, and I thought, wow, yes, I like that. I can incorporate that. And then sometimes when you see it done so poorly, miss me with that one, because I will not do that. But it's all part of that, right? Seeing it done well, seeing it done poorly, and then making some decisions about who you are and how you will or will not incorporate, and just putting your own branding on it. truly. But, I was told that I have far surpassed mentorship, that it is too late. It's just too late. That window has closed. The boat has. I know, I'm just teasing Amy. I'm teasing Amy. But what it is now for me, and what is true, is that now I focus on thought partnership. I truly focus on thought partnership. No matter your background, no matter what you have, what you think you don't have, every Black woman I have ever met, every single one has something to bring to the table by way of her gifts. She just has to be unafraid to speak on it. And when she speaks on it, I am very excited to take from it, to capture it, and to encourage it, and to acknowledge it, right? So you keep keeping on, sister, because you really do have those gifts. And I'm loving that makeup. I wanted to tell you that earlier. Right, the whole thing. I mean, she just got it. She just got it. But the thought partnership, just in casual conversations at the table, is very real. So I appreciate that you all are so giving of your wisdom when you don't necessarily even know you're giving it. So thank you for that.
I think, so I started working in the nonprofit sector in Baltimore, which was a much different experience than being back in the sector here in New Mexico. And so I think when I moved back home to New Mexico, I realized that I had to be really intentional about the mentors and the connections that I maintained in Baltimore. And I think that has been a practice of mine since then, is to be intentional about seeking out mentors that are probably not going to be here in New Mexico. If I go to a conference for work and there's a presenter that I'm just like in awe of, I'm up there after the presentation, introducing myself, sharing my information, because there's somebody that I want to stay in touch with. And so I think it has just taken a different kind of intentionality to steward and build up that network of mentors. I think the other thing is that, one of my goddess mentors here in New Mexico is a Black woman. Her name is Mijan Salih, and she started the Women of Color Nonprofit Leadership Cohort here in New Mexico for that very reason. There weren't enough mentors for women of color, Black women in the nonprofit sector in New Mexico. And so I also find that as a charge, right? That if you had a hard time finding what you needed, create it for someone else. Yes. Because there are other people who are probably looking for the same thing that you were looking for. And then my final note is, so many of us, like, we're all in our roles, but we probably never cross paths on a daily basis, right? Because we're all in our disciplines, we're all in our sectors doing our thing. And, the girlfriends, we all call each other at the end of the day, because we're all facing white supremacist culture. And so we're needing to come together at the end of the day and like take care of each other and decompress. And those sister circles, that like coming together, that caring for each other, that is, I like that thought leadership. And it is also circling together as friends and sisters and Black women to be tender with each other, because when we're out there, it can be so hard. And so I think there's the mentorship aspect, and then there's just the care and love that we extend to each other, because we know what it's like for you to show up in hard spaces as a Black woman, right? Yes. Who else knows what that's like? And so the care and tenderness and love that we offer each other is also so, so vital.
Put me on your phone tree.
Hey. I think that for me, the term and the definition of mentorship has changed over the years. And so I used to think that it was all about having this one dedicated person that could teach and pour into me. And that's a part of it. But the one thing, at 51 now, I understand that not everything can be taught. Some things have to be caught. And I pay attention to every sister that I'm around. Like, I can tell you what I've learned from you, everybody around this table, just in this little time that we've been together today. And so what I do is, because you can't always have a sit down with everybody. I glean something from every encounter that I have, but I do have those dedicated people that I can call to say, hey, I'm second guessing myself on this, or, what do you think about that? Or, am I wrong? You know, because we need that too, right? Everybody, when we think about mentorship, sometimes it's always the cheerleaders, but sometimes we need a little scouring pad too. You know, iron sharpens iron, right? And so if I need somebody where I can go to say, hey, you know what, I think that I was wrong, and like, yeah, you was wrong. You need to get it together, right? You know, I intentionally surround myself with people who do that for me, because I would rather have an honest enemy than a politically correct friend. Like, don't let me get to where I'm going and you not tell me that I need to get this together, right? And so I think that, like, I think, Nisi, what you said is important about create what you need. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when you give out of your own need, God restores and he gives you even more. You know what I mean? And so I try to be, I've also been in cultures where there has been a tendency for older, more seasoned people to not want to mentor because you're not taking my job, you're not taking my, you know, and so I intentionally try to dismantle those kinds of things. And I mentor young people for the specific purpose of taking my job, because that's what it's about, right? We're building legacies. It's not just about us, right? So that's just my Cabbage Patch theory.
I remember talking about mentors at a panel, and I realized at the end of it that I had only mentioned men as mentors of mine, right? Like, and Alexander just heard me say this, right? I'm like, Ray Hamilton was like a father to me, you know, if you remember like Campaign Justice, Charlie Daniels, right? And those two men in particular who passed away right before I decided to become a judge, they poured into my cup endlessly. You know, they were the cheerleader, they were the critical one, they were the like, yes, you should go take this job. No, you shouldn't take that, right? Like, they were amazing mentors. But this was probably about 6-7 years ago, and I realized, I was like, wow, like I don't have any women mentors. And the legal world is male dominant, like a lot of places are, right? But that was when I started becoming intentional and really saying, okay, like if I'm going to a conference in another state, or I'm going to pick up the phone and call Judge Angela Jewell here in New Mexico, the first Black district court trial judge, a little bit more, right? Like I'm going to be intentional about making those relationships, because while I was intentional about being like, oh, you're here in my sights and you're doing what I want to do, so I'm going to reach out to you, it's important to have the mentors of the women who look like you, that understand what it's like for you to move through that space. And I think like everybody else here, you know, well, I still think mentorship is a lifelong thing. Like there's always things to learn. Part of that learning is giving back, right? And is that mentorship that you now give to others. And so I'm also very intentional now about, if you call me, you ask me to be your mentor, it doesn't matter what you look like, what your background is, I'm going to give to you because you took the time to ask. But certainly I'm going to be intentional about making sure that women that do look like us are receiving that mentorship, especially if they're in fields that I can particularly help them with.
Absolutely right. And, you know, part of why it's so important to have, you know, Black women in leadership roles is because it is, you know, there are so many things that when you're having conversations, and you can definitely learn from other women of color, and you can also learn from white women, but at the same time, those experiences that you share as just being a Black woman in the professional world, that's something that is just different for us, right? Because there is something very, very connected to that. And so I want to turn us to this idea of shifting, right? And I want to give a shout. Right?
Can we just acknowledge that we all shifted in our
Yes. I want to give a shout out to a local Black female leader, Sonia Gibson Rankin, who I took a class with many years ago. And when I went to go buy the books for the class, one of the books was Shifting. And I picked up that book and I was like, yes, just by reading the title. And so, you know, have been talking about that in my friend circles, and want to talk with you all about that too, is that we talk about shifting, and it's this idea that Black women lead this double life, right? We just feel compelled to hide who we are in the professional world. And yet the professional world keeps saying, we want diversity, we want your authentic selves, right? but that really you can't be your true self, because the coping skill to meet with the racist and the sexist and all the barriers that are in this world is that you're supposed to hide to fit in. You're pressured to, leave your blackness at home. I remember my mom when I was little being like, "We're going in here, put your white face on," right? Like that was how she prepared us for those spaces where we could not act up. And so, what ways have you had to shift in the workplace? And what have you found to be really useful, in like going home and then being authentic?
You notice that we're all over the way, like, don't start with me.
My Lord, my Lord.
Dr. Bannerman?
I'll go after Pastor.
I was sitting in a one-on-one, which was very hard for me when I first started. One-on-one, when the manager comes in and says, "So what do you want to talk about?" And I'm like, "Wait, you made the appointment. I have nothing, And when, because of my voice and because I'm a preacher, as well as once I got my confidence, I became what other races may feel too aggressive. And when she said to me, "You don't have to be angry, stop being so angry." And what did that do but make me angry? And so, I could not believe it. I think I had probably just watched Tyler Perry's movie. And so here I am, so you're calling me angry because I'm a Black woman, because I'm expressing myself. I haven't raised my voice, but I'm being stern about what I'm saying. And so I felt then that she kind of like put her foot on me, that I wasn't going to go anywhere unless I shifted into what they needed me to be. So then I felt like, okay, well, I know what I'm doing, but maybe I should dummy down a little bit to get where I need to go. And then I had to realize that how much I brought to the table. And when I realized how much I brought to the table, then I said, you know what? No, I'm going to be even more transparent. I'm a pastor, now, that's my, people come to my desk, and the blessing is that they have allowed me to be who I am. I was a police chaplain for over 10 years, and my pager, they still use pagers, would go off. My pager would go off. And I'd be parked in the parking lot at my job in my vehicle, in my police vehicle. And they would allow me to go because I kept up with my work. I was able to do, bring home the bacon, never let, all of that. I was able to do my job and do it professionally great. I brought things to the table, and I had to get rid of that angry woman and stigma, and let them see that I was just a woman of confidence. And so my shifting was, instead of hiding like I was, I became more transparent. This is who I am.
I did say that, right? It's just so many things that I know we are all thinking. And I will share very honestly, just in the spirit of your transparency, right? As you were talking, even preparing for this part, I thought and I spoke, what can I really say? What truths can I really tell? Because somebody's going to hear me say something, put me in a box, and think that's all I am. Is that one soundbite of a 30-second comment that I made. It will be taken well out of context, and then I will have a label when I wake up in the morning. That is a part of this. That is a part of an everyday truth that I live. What is the thing that I'm going to say that is brilliantly true and real, evidence-based, solid, tangible, in your face? You see it, I see it, I said it, but you're mad because I said it. So now all of a sudden, I'm your problem. Well, I'm not your problem. I can very well be your solution if you will just be still enough and hear me, understanding that the words that I speak will only elevate, support, and lift you up, correct your error, and make you better because of it. But no, that's not how this thing goes. Often that's not, because you can tell me your truth and I'm supposed to take it. You can speak whatever words you want to speak to me, and I'm supposed to be thankful that I can even exist in your space. I'm supposed to be polite, professional, cordial, approachable, accommodating, easy, and nice. I'm supposed to be all of that no matter what you say to me. My demeanor is not supposed to change. Even in my defense of myself and in advocacy for my purpose and my belief, I've got to be so calculated in how I open my mouth and allow the words to come out. Because if I don't do that, it won't matter the message. It'll be my tone. My tone will become your new problem with me for the day. And the truth that I spoke in a tone that you found unoffensive because it was a truth that was about you, then let's just talk about how she's so unprofessional. She's so unpolished. She is just not at all poised. Oh, she is all of those things and so much more. You just don't want to see it because my shine is so blinding to you. So when I talk about shifting, being chameleon, and having to be what you think I should be, I will not be that. I will not live my life in a way that makes you comfortable. I am not going to say the things that you want to hear because I want to please you. But I am also not stupid. I am not stupid. The problem with that is I still have to find balance. There is no such thing as just speaking the truth the way you want, when you want, how you want, to whom you want. You have to be, I think you calculated, intentional are words that you all have spoken. You have to know exactly what you're going to say, how you're going to frame it, to whom you will speak it, and how you will justify it before you even open your mouth. And you better be able to do it within a few seconds, because that's how fast you have to turn it around. That is just how fast. My mask will change many times during the day, just during a day. I have to be who I need to be in order to get to the result that I need to get to so we can move the work forward. I have to be conscientious of your feelings, conscientious of your thoughts, conscientious of who else is in the room and who might be listening. But I know I don't get the same in kind. I know I don't get the same in kind, but it's necessary. That's how we climb. That's how we sustain. That's how we continue to keep the seats at the tables we have, because we can't fight the fight and advocate for the people if we lose our space, and we occupy so few. So the shift is real. And if you don't know, you better ask somebody.
Right. I love how you say that, right? Because what you're talking about is empathy, and that Black women just tend to be, by force, much more empathetic, right? And yet we are constantly handed the Brene Brown book on here's some lessons in empathy, right? Or, hey, I saw this really great YouTube TED Talk that you should watch, you know? And so that's definitely what you're talking about, right? It's that that we are, right? We're learning ways to do this shift and still keep our own identities.
Yes.
Right.
Spot on.
Yeah.
I think the other part of that conversation that I want to add to speaking Black women to Black women to Black women is that, you know, we have been socialized to internalize what we're talking about is dual oppressions of racism and sexism. And we have been socialized to internalize that other people being described as assertive is us being angry. Yes. And that we have been put into and cast into this light and this role that is not ours to own, not ours to accept, and not ours to live into, right? And so I know the question comes a little later on, I think, but I think for us is that we all know the shift has happened. We talked about this in the passing of the Crown Act, right? The research shows that how many people have straightened their hair in order to go into the job interview, to be deemed more professional. those are all subscribing to a certain standard of beauty that was not made for us, that was not made by us and of us, right? And so I think like all of it is true. And because I am certainly committed to decolonizing and deconstructing and living a life that dismantles oppression in all its forms, it is for me to check the times when I started to police other Black women, when they show up in space authentically as themselves, and it may not be how I would show up in space. And I get that tinge of like, ooh, you gonna say that, right? And to acknowledge that, like, that sister gets to show up and say what she wants to say and how she wants to say it, right? Because I too have been raised and socialized, internalized that I have to show up in a certain way to be deemed professional, acceptable, and all of these other things. And so for me, it's a constant practice to make sure that I myself am not upholding those forms of oppression by shaming or blaming or looking at my sisters as if they're showing up in space wrong because they're showing up how they want to show up. And so for me, it's that acknowledgement that like, yes, it's real. Yes, we all do it. We all know how that happens. And also we contribute to it.
True points.
And if you want to wear a bonnet to the airport, go right ahead.
Well, she's up in the
Listen, I was raised at New Zion Baptist Church in Alamogordo, New Mexico. I've been socialized.
So kind of like you, Dr. Bannerman, you know, just sitting here and just what part of my truth can I really say? And what, you know what I mean? Because yeah, I mean, we're recording this, right? And so it's one of those things. For me, I was a peacekeeper growing up. I had a sister, we were about a year apart, and she was a hell raiser to the nth degree, would fight, would say whatever she wanted. And I used to always just be like, what is wrong with you? Like, you know, like, what, like, do you always have to be so mad about? But then I thought about it and I was like, she's being who she is. And what's wrong with me that I feel like I cannot, or that I don't feel comfortable saying, hey, I don't like what you just did. I'll just get ghost. You know, before that was a real term, I used to do that on a regular. If you did something I didn't like, as opposed to talking about those kinds of things because it was uncomfortable. And so it wasn't until literally 2010, I lost my son to medical injustice. And that thing flipped something in me. And my truth now is that if you don't stand for something, Kim, you will fall for anything. And so there is not a situation, there is not a job, there is nothing that I'm willing to stay in that makes me so uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, I don't know about y'all, but I go home exhausted. Psychologically exhausted, because like you said, from minute to minute, you have to put on this mask, you have to put on this hat, you have to do this, you have to, and it's a constant, you have to always stay 10 steps ahead and be prepared for what's going to come, because it's going to come. You just don't know where it's going to come from, but it's going to come. And so it's draining to always have to try to prepare yourself. You know, and then I find myself, you know, I think you used the word chameleon, you know, and you just kind of blend and fit in. And so I've become an ambivert. And so when I go home, I don't have to deal with people. So I don't, you know what I mean? I turn my phone off. I'm an ambivert. I'm social because I have to. But when you have to constantly shift every minute of the day, it physically, it wears you down. Mentally, just makes you constantly question, okay, like, was I supposed to say that? Should I not? You know, like, okay, what's about to happen after this? You know what I mean? And so even now, like you said, like tomorrow, what's the first email I'm gonna get? And you know what? For me, I'm just at a place, I've experienced the worst loss that I'm going to experience. And so I've just made a conscious decision that I'm tired of living like that. And like, Unique talked about, you know, facing that fear of every day, like, okay, are you going to be who you are, or are you going to be who they need you to be. And it is a choice. And for Black women, you know, the whole sexism thing is real too, because you can show up in a room and you can say something and a man will say something. It was just like, you never even said it. I'm just being real. I'm speaking about my own experience. I don't know about y'all, but you know what I mean? And so I guess for people that are listening out there to our stories, and if you are experiencing this, you know, take courage that you're not by yourself and that we're having these conversations and we're being vulnerable at great risk for some of us, so that you can know that you're not crazy, you're not imagining this. It's real. It's lived experiences for all of us.
I think one of the things that happens where you start evolving in your career is you do feel a level of comfort in a way that you certainly did not, right, at one point. And I think that you touched upon this a little bit, right? I can think back about my younger self of walking into space as a state prosecutor, as a federal prosecutor, and being like, okay, well, what does this look like? Because I am the only Black person in the building, never mind Black woman, Black lawyer, Black prosecutor, right? Like it was always that you're the only one in that space. And so you are now representing all Black people, right? And that continues as you move up in whatever it is that you choose to do, right? Like there's always this cognizant of like, I am now embodying all Black people. And we all know, even looking at this table, right? Like multiple successful women, all very different people. And I think that's when kind of going back to the mentorship piece, right? Why it is so important to reach out to women who you look like, who you resonate with, that you can have those conversations with and say like, hey, this is what happened at this conference, you know, or this meeting, and this person said this, or this person came into my office and came at me this kind of way, and I just switched back and forth. Came into my office and spoke to me in a tone in which I did not appreciate, right? But those are the things, right, that I think have helped me, and to be able to have those conversations with people to say, this is what happened. I'm not sure if I handled it correctly, right? Like there was a big part of me that wanted to respond in this way, and I was afraid to. Whereas, you know, yes, of course, we are still shifting. We are still, you know, managing that. But I think over time, you gain some more confidence in that, right? And I know for me, especially, one of the reasons why I did pick entrepreneurship was because I was like, this is my firm. I can do whatever I want. And my friends that know me, they're like, yes, right? Like, I'm like, I can wear what I want. I can, you know, have my hair how I want. My logo is going to be what it's going to be. If you come in and you want to hire me, I'm going to talk to you the way I want to talk to you, right? Like, and that was one of those kind of like moments for me in my career that I really felt like I could release. Now, not everybody has that benefit, but I think also kind of knowing yourself along your path too, and really kind of being like, where can I be my truest self? And just running towards that, because I think that's hugely important in your life goals of being your most authentic self.
You know, and what you're also touching on, right, is that there is a lack of representation, that we are often the only Black woman or the only Black person in the room, but all of our other only identities, right? And so I want to shift our conversation to really start talking about representation in the workplace and what that really does around microaggressions, and what that does for the way that we connect with allies and other women in the workplace, you know? And so a lot of times when there's a lack of representation, certainly here in New Mexico, where, you know, I can't even believe it. Sometimes we'll be like, you're the first Black person I've ever met. And I'm like, this is 2021. That should not be a thing that you say. It's not right. And so, right, what that does is that results in so many different microaggressions and in so many different workspaces that just aren't safe, right? That, you know, and sometimes those microaggressions are the things that, you know, someone thinks is a compliment, right? That someone can't even understand why it's a microaggression, you know? So what has this experience been like for you all? What are the microaggressions that have happened to you in your workplaces, around in workspaces? And how do you handle them? Because again, we'd all like to answer in that certain kind of tone, right? But again, we've been taught and internalized the way to be professional in these spaces. So how are we handling microaggressions? How are we handling unsafe workspaces?
So, like there's been all this talk about diversity, equity, inclusion,
Say
belonging,
that. Come on with it.
becoming.
Come on with it.
I.
Right? Oh, this is so good. This is so good.
Some people are just now learning what a microaggression is. But also some of these aggressions are not micro. They are straight out aggressions, right? And I can speak from my experience. Oftentimes what happens is I have not realized what happened until I got home and that thing settled in my nerves.
Yes.
And I was like, that was racist.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's why I'm so invested in our well-being and us being whole and well and healing constantly, because what we face on a day-to-day basis, whether it's a microaggression or a straight out aggression, it chips away at you.
It does.
Right. And then when it settles in you and you realize what happened to you, that I'm passionately advocating for the work that my organization does. And you heard me yelling at you because you were talking about cutting my grant funding. I'm sorry, I'm trying to house women who are fleeing domestic violence in a shelter, and you cutting funding affects our ability to do that. So if my passion comes through my voice, and that equates to being angry to you, right? We're not talking about the same thing, because people having safe housing is something that we should all be passionate about, right? And so I think, for me, it's the take your sick days, take your leave days, create a circle, look at your organization and think about what does leadership look like in your organization? Where are the safe spaces where you can talk about what's happening to you? Because it takes a toll on you. There is a price to pay, right? We're talking about the disproportionate impacts of COVID. Black people's nervous systems have been stressed for 400 years, right? And so I want to acknowledge that what's happening to us is real, it's constant, it's every day almost. And that our healing, our well-being should come first. It's kind of blatant, but there's this meme on the internet that says take your sick days, sis, because if you were to be dead tomorrow, they'll have your role filled the next day.
And
we have to think about how much are we willing to give of ourselves and not receive that back. And it's not worth us being run down and unwell for these jobs.
so true.
Yeah, so to echo what Nisi was saying, I think that self-care, right? And so before COVID, my nonprofit Serving Others While Helping Ourselves exists to create a healthy balance between service and self-care, because the expectation is that no matter how exhausted, no matter how sick, that we still show up and we are 150%. But with regards to the representation thing, I think what adds insult to injury for me in my experiences is when you share with someone, how, your lived experience, and they say, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. No, you didn't hear what I said. I it's a lived experience and it's not open to your interpretation. And that is insulting at this age for me. And it is, I think that in organizations, we do not create safe spaces to talk about these kinds of things. And so while I appreciate employee assistance programs, we have to do a better job at creating spaces, normalizing conversations like this before it gets to the point that DEI is this buzzword all of a sudden. It should have always been this way, right? We know that, but in reality, it's not. And so we create these things in response to what's happening right now. But then after the shadows fade, after the cameras go away, who's left to still really be doing the DEI work? It's us, right? Because the representation, like you talked about, judgment, you're the only Black person and they think that you're supposed to solve every Black person's problems because you're Black and you're supposed to have all of the answers.
That's right.
No, we don't. We don't. We do not. We are living things just like everybody else.
That's right.
And when we go home and take off our capes, we have to process also. But I just think normalizing the conversations and not feeling entitled to judge our lived experiences will go a long way, at least for me, with regards to representation.
Well, what a conversation this is, right? I tell you what, a couple of things. As a child, and this is before microaggression was a term, right? As a child, and it just popped into my head. So I'll start here. I recall many times being told as a little girl, oh, you are so beautiful to be a dark-skinned girl. And I would think, well, what? And as a child, I knew something was wrong with that, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it as a child. Or as I get older, right? Because there's nothing skinty about me, right? How you people will have told me, men have said to me, you just have a beautiful face. But as I got older, I was like, and so what you saying about the rest of me? If you can't compliment the package, keep it moving. But it's those things, right? Where people in their hearts, truly, their ignorant hearts, they really believe they're paying me a compliment. They truly believe that they are saying something positive, but they're so not. So as I continue to move through and I grow up and I work in different jobs, a few things have happened. And I say few, and you know I'm exaggerating. Many things have happened. But the few that I will speak on today, one, and this has stayed with me. This is not in my current position, and I'm not just saying that because I don't want static, but this really did not happen in my current position. But when I made a decision that I wanted to position myself to not continue to beat my head up against the wall, but to make real changes in a school system. So I said, okay, I'm going to throw my name in a hat. Let's see what shakes out. Shake the tree, something might fall. I was told by someone who I truly do respect and who I know really meant well, but she just kind of missed the mark. And she says, you gotta be less of a squeaky wheel. You just gotta be less of a squeaky wheel. You don't necessarily always have to say it. You don't always have to, but I'm like, have you met me? Do you know me at all? There is no way, because most times if I don't open my mouth and say it, it will not be said to the correct people sitting at the table at the time it needs to be spoken. But in her mind, she wanted to try to help me elevate by telling me to say less. And I'm like, no, I need to say more. You've not even seen the half of what I should be saying. But in her mind, her trying to dim me a bit because I'm supposed to shrink, right? That's what Unique said, right? I was supposed to shrink in order to grow. What? Right? I mean, it just, no, that does not, but in her mind, it made perfect sense because it's me. And she can say that to me. And I'm supposed to, once again, accept it, go with it, flow with it, and do it because she said so. Not at all. Other microaggressions, and I don't even know if the world understands, and I think this is an aggression. When everybody decided, okay, now let's jump, we have seen many Black boys, Black men, Black girls, Black women shot and killed, let's call it what it is, murdered in the street, on the streets, all around this nation, all around our world. But all of a sudden, one day we decided to pay attention. just one day we decided, George Floyd, let's get mad about it because that was on the news. George Floyd, let's get mad. Let's really, everybody, let's have these moments of silence. Let's really get behind the charge because we saw that video on the TV. Well, now, wait now. What made him the point where we wanted to pay attention? What was it that told the world, okay, well, we can't just ignore it because we saw the video and the celebrities are saying we should care, so let's care. I was offended in every way because so many were murdered before him and after him. That just happened, and after him. But that's when we decided to pay attention. Why is it that we are always made to feel like a marketing campaign? If that is not, and that is just, it's insanity, it's foolishness, and I have had enough. Why? And my life doesn't matter until you say it matters. But that's what we deal with because we're expected to just go with that flow in our workspaces. We are expected to support what the workspace supports, how they support it, and we're supposed to wear the face that they need us to wear in our support in representation of the organization. I say no. I say no. Because if we're going to care, we need to care about everyone. If we are going to stand up against murder, we need to do that for everyone all the time, period. I'm going to stop there because I might just have to stand up to my feet and start walking around with the microphone. So I'm going to leave it at that.
And I think the problem with these discussions is that there just is not enough time. And that is why we want to, at the Office of African American Affairs, continue these conversations in multiple places. So I'm really excited about us being the first one, but also excited that we will continue to have these conversations throughout the year. And so, we're almost out of time, but there are still two very, very important questions that I want to ask y'all. And so the first question, I'm just going to ask you to share what you shared earlier about the meme that you saw or the post, right? So that when we say many Black women are in spaces where they are one of the only, and that we rely on white women to be our allies, right? And so what kind of advice would you give to white women who are very interested and want to be allies for us in the workplace?
That's a really deep question. And so Resna Minicum, who's a social worker who focuses on healing racialized trauma, recently gave a talk, and he said, if you didn't tell me you were an ally, how would I know? Mm-hmm. And then he, broke down, like, what have you done? How have you shown me that you're an actual ally through your actions, not just calling yourself an ally?
Mm-hmm. And so I also, after that advice that we want to give to our allies in the workplace, I also want each of us to be able to give words of wisdom to, I don't want to say younger people, right? Because I know that, as we've talked about, mentoring is a lifelong thing. Sometimes older folks need some mentoring and words of wisdom. And so I just want to ask each of you to just share a little bit of words of wisdom that you might give to another Black professional woman who is watching this right now. What would you say to her? Can we start with you, Dr. Behrman?
Of course. So that one's a tough one as well because there's so many things, and I wrote this down because I really did not want to forget what I wanted to say. So truly, no matter who you are, what you're doing, where you are in life, I want you to put these words in your pocket and pull them out at any time when you just need a little reminder. I want you to be unafraid to choose it. Be unafraid to chase it. Be unafraid to reach right out and grab it and own it. And when you get it, be unapologetic for the fact that you have earned it. You deserve it. And you will maintain it in a way that only you can, brilliantly and beautifully. Why? Not because I said so, but because it is so.
There's something that was God gave me earlier this year, and that was never put a permanent sign on something that's temporary. And I thought about how when .com first started, how you had to put the whole www dot whatever you were looking for .com, and then later on you had to put the HTTP and the backslash, and or the HTTPS and the backslash to get where you were going. But now today you can just put the thought of, maybe you just heard one word and you can put it up and you can arrive at the same place. So many of us are going to take different paths. We're going to take many different paths, but we're going to end up in the place that we should. And so we can't receive what people say to us and then put up a sign and say, this is where I'm going to be. Because wherever you are, if it's not what you desire, if you know that there's more for you, don't get comfortable there. Look for the permanent place.
Yes. Yes. Judge Henderson, any words of wisdom for us?
I think it's always really, really important to remember that your value is not dictated by your achievements. Your value isn't dictated by the relationships that you have, right? If you're married, not married, have children, don't have children. Your value isn't dictated by the failures, that the things that you perceive as failures. I would say that they are lessons. And to really take the time to love yourself. I could sit here and talk about all the professional things and, here's the steps too, right? But at the end of the day, your self-love is so much more important than anything else. And if that takes going to a therapist, if that takes being with your girlfriends, that you can call and say, this is what happened, and I feel really bad about myself. And they're going to say, girl, like, you are amazing. Like, if that is going to your pastor, like whoever that is, but at the end of the day, like having that just certainty, and no matter what is going on in my world right now, my value, I was placed on this earth to do amazing things, and just hold on to that and know that you are loved, you are amazing, you are deserving, and you are worthy of everything that you want to do. Then everything else will work out the way it's supposed to.
Thank you. Ms. York, words of wisdom.
So similar to Judge Henderson. So what I would say to you is, wherever you go, there you will be. And people and circumstances are temporary and will come and go. But the more that you love yourself, as that has already been echoed, you have to be able to stand before you, and you have to be okay with you as a whole package, regardless of one day you dressed to the hilt, or then the next day you're going out in a bonnet. But you have to be embracing and accepting of your whole self. We are all a process, right? Just because you have a bad day today doesn't mean that that's going to be the end of your story.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be in the circle with you all. Hanging above my desk at home is a letter from Gerald Champion Memorial Hospital in Alamogordo, dated from 1956. And it says, Mrs. Carnell Taylor's character is above reproach. My grandma was born in 1931 in St. Maurice, Louisiana. I know she saw some things. I know she went through some things. I know she faced some hard times. And her character was described as above reproach. And that's who I'm striving to be every day. And it doesn't mean that I've walked perfectly. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that I haven't completely messed things up before, or that I am never wrong. But every day I sit at my desk and I look at that letter, and I have my marching orders of what I'm striving to be. And so that's my word of encouragement.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you all so much for being the amazing people and bringing your true selves and your great wisdom here today. I would love for our community to continue to look. We are going to be starting the When and Where I Enter series, which will have multiple conversations like this and interviews with individuals and really highlighting the experiences, the lived experiences, not the feelings, right, of Black women in our professional workplaces. I also want to encourage all of you to join us for the rest of the Black Thought Expo events. The Black Economic Forum will be on Thursday. Next Monday, we will have the Increasing the Black Political Engagement. And then on Thursday and Friday, we will have the State of the Black State, hearing from leaders in our community about social issues and how we can move those forward. And I just want to end today on the idea and the promise that the pandemic is going to be ending soon, that we are going to be opening up the state and getting out there. And so I just want to encourage each and every one of you to go out there, get that vaccine, because I want to hug you. Thank you guys so much. Good night.